Ever since the beginning, flight simming has evolved over time. The business side always hoped it to be a pleasure to consumers. Never did we realize how more intense gaming could be, especially with the introduction of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Things have been more intense, having more and more add-ons. With the new sim in place, there have been endless possibilities opening doors to things we couldn't imagine, trying to get us engaged more into the experience. Over the last few years, we've seen numerous developments in technology, especially on gears that really help with immersion. What are some of the things that come to our mind? It's either VR or a tracking tool that's something like Track IR. But would there be something that could translate your head movement in the platform of your choice, while you really didn't have to wrap anything on your head to get that result? A team from Sweden we're all aware of to bring a solution to bring something like this: the Tobii Eye Tracker 5. Ladies and gentlemen, we bring you a whole lot of areas at the sim. Do consider subscribing for future releases. We all know what Tobii can offer us. There have been pros at this arena, making eye and head tracking hardware and software from quite a while. Now gaming comes to our mind when we think of a solution this sort. What else can we achieve with this? Productivity as well. Before we dive right into details, you could be one of those lucky winners to win a cool Tobii Eye Tracker 5. Make sure to enter the Sweepstakes campaign and you'll be asked a series of questions and actions to gain your entry for this lottery. The more entries, the better your chances to win some prizes, including one Tobii Eye Tracker plus other prizes including base packs at the sim. Remember, the sweepstakes will take place between the 25th of January and the 8th of February. The folks at Tobii wanted me to give this a try and really see if this can make a difference in my flight simming experience. If this really has the capacity to free my head and get that feel of immersion. I received a well-wrapped box that was shipped right from Sweden, their headquarters. Inside was a branded box with their company's deep purple theme. A well-packaged box, I thought, that came safely all along in a single piece. Now opening the box contained a few items that were necessary for the setup, from a couple of flat magnetic mounts, a USB extension cable, the eye tracker of course, warranty, and a set of instructions to set this up, saving paper instead of having a separate manual. The unpacking felt quite simple, similar to the kind of a new age Apple or a Samsung phone. Out of the box and plug and play. It's not yet. Just plug and play won't help here. The team always suggests us to get the latest drivers from their website, to which I did. Plus, with the use of Tobii Experience, an app conveniently found at Microsoft Store that synchronizes this device with ease. But before all that, taking a look at the product felt quite sturdy with an impressive unit. Now having something more metal-like feels safer and durable. Now although I won't really interact much on a unit like this as it's physically placed right below my monitor. A sleek look that felt solid. Placing the unit right below the monitor blends with the setup easily. It does look related to it immediately. Installing this didn't really take much time. A straightforward setup using two included adhesive strips to stick them underneath the monitor. You don't need any tools for the entire setup, so something to keep in mind. With a unit plugged into my PC, the setup process was straightforward. Now Tobii uses modern Windows software packages, helping the hardware to recognize and install with minimal effort through the Windows update. If you have trouble installing though, there's a separate page to download the Tobii software directly, and you can find this link in the description below in case you got stuck. The Tobii Experience. This would be the only software to install from the Microsoft Store, and it's quite essential to make the unit function. a piece of software that operates in the background that helps you first verify and synchronize on the settings depending on where you exactly place the unit, calibrate it with the position so that your head and eyes can be tracked. It also has a nice feature to see your gaze, and it's quite accurate to see a bubble floating on the monitor depending on where you see. You do have the option to install Tobii Ghost, another piece of software that helps your audience see your tracking if you stream often. Not really necessary, but a feature that's nice to have rather. Now at the first glance on the feel, the experience is quite unique with this piece of hardware. There are many things to discuss to really answer if this is a true replacement for systems like Track IR. Adding to that, I do have several questions on my mind. For the most part, Tobii works like a Track IR or an open track setup where moving your head slightly will be responded depending on the settings. If you look at any side of the aircraft, you should be able to do it with ease. Now the Tobii Eye Tracker 5 sure did perform well with its fast and smooth responses, but sure took a little bit of time to set things right. Now part of the way the tracker processes are not just depending on your head movement, also the position of your eyes. This could make a bit more difference, especially in flight simming. You would want to see the cockpit with ease all around, particularly when there's a need to make any adjustments in any of the instruments during onboarding or any time during your flight. Now the setup isn't different from Track IR or VR. The experience does have positives, I would say, but these are things to keep note. I would rather prefer to have a free-floating feel that makes it a bit more comfy, and although there was a smooth movement either up or down, left or right, it somewhat felt a bit sluggish. It's not really an issue, I would say, as the sim is more focused on aircraft that don't crave attention all the time, and we're talking about the military kind. Now if the tracker is mounted the right way, it doesn't rely on IR LEDs like the one set up on Track IR or even Open Track. There are no dead spots when mounted the right way. Let's look at the setup here. The manner I've set Tobii works between 90 to 95% depending on my head movement, helping with my viewpoint around the screen. It does feel comfortable, plus the configuration sure helps a tad more being responsive with a slight lag that doesn't really matter. While I've seen others having a bit of lag, I didn't really face any issues. The way you set Tobii would make a difference in your experience as well. With the included mount should easily fit and function on a flat or a curved screen. My setup is a 32-inch LG monitor with another 32-inch on the side, but I prefer to use one monitor at a time while I work on other things on the other monitor. According to Tobii, the aspect ratio should be 16:9 for either a 27-inch screen, 30 inches, or even a 32-inch monitor in my case. The tracker could read my eyes right to the edge of the screen. Looking at the way it performs on various instances here, Microsoft Flight Simulator has been the platform of choice here, and there are several types of adventures we can try. For starters, I'm on a Cessna 172, a popular model within the GA category. Not really a serious flight on a Cessna, as it's more of a relaxed purpose. Of course, some get trained on a Cessna as well. Now with the small cockpit this size, it does help me look around when needed, especially instruments that matter during most of your flight. There's always a dependency to look around the cockpit to manage ground speed while we taxi, mark off a checklist while we reach the runway, set things up like throttle, mixture and so on while we head towards climb and navigation during our journeys. How would Tobii matter? Would it replace all of the games? There's a good list of games that the tracker supports, 169 of them covering a range of titles. In fact, not all the titles support every piece of hardware or software revision, and some titles have limited support to any of the devices that matter. Thankfully, on Microsoft Flight Simulator, we do have official support on Tobii. The system does recognize this, and it was a bit difficult to manage at first, but the solution was quite simpler than I hoped for. I relied on Tobii Game Hub to try and find the right executable. Now the available sensitivity adjustments within the sim are more than adequate to dial in, and it's a setting that works perfectly for you. In terms of accessibility, what I really liked about Tobii would be the ease of use here, once it's all set up the right way. With other devices including Track IR, I usually open a software, make sure it is tracking, minimize it and ensure that it all happens before the sim even begins. With Tobii on the other hand, it runs on the background, and with this setup done initially, there isn't a need to open and confirm any of the settings to see if it's really in sync. If at all I decide to disable the tracker, it's just a couple of clicks on the Tobii experience to get things going. Although this could be a small thing, it can make a difference on the long run when you use the tracker regularly. When we talk about convenience, I prefer to have them hands-free, rather heads-free in this case. Not wearing something and yet experiencing can be a bit more comfortable, and one of the reasons why I would lean on the Tobii tracker. Several of the simmers have their own ways of setups. Some may prefer track IR, some prefer VR. Tobii here offers another option being heads-free, offering us a good level of immersion. There are a number of things I would recommend you to follow under setting things up. While you're on the sim menu, confirm Tobii is on the sim. Choose the default under Tobii. Creating a new profile expands more changes you could have depending on the type of aircraft you would need to try. Create a new profile and name a preset profile. This allows you to make changes the way you need. Having a reset function benefits when you need to reset your position in the cockpit. On a keyboard, navigate to the option of Eye Tracking Reset and assign F12. It makes things easier to reset your position when you're on flight. Make sure to confirm Toggle Head Tracking under keyboard. I prefer to choose the option of pressing Shift and \. It turns on or off your Tobii device. Click Apply and save. Adjust the way you want the cockpit to be set by hitting the F12 button. By hitting F12, it helps you adjust the way you want the cockpit to be. There are different settings out here. Under sensitivity, we have eye versus head tracking ratio. You can either move the eye versus head to the manner you'd like. For example, the more ratio the eye has to head, it means that the tracker would track your eye more. Here the setting is set at 0.85, relating to 85% of my head movement and 15% of my eye. Eye tracking responsiveness. As we see it, my setting is at 0.50, which is a default setting. It determines how the camera view changes in response to your head or eye movements. Turn the slider down, the camera moves slowly. Turn the slider to the right, the camera can move instantly. If you turn the slider to 0, it disables eye tracking. Head tracking sensitivity, pitch or yaw. Essentially, pitch means looking up or down. Yaw means looking left or right. My setting is set at 2.0, which is at default state. Now higher the setting, the more the camera would move. Make sure to set it based on your comfort, and it all matters on the type of aircraft you fly, so having different profiles can always help you better. Center stabilization. It determines how the camera can be sensitive when it's close to the default pitch in your position. It can prevent head movements. Turn it up to make it less sensitive or turn it down to make it more sensitive. The default setting is at 0.20. Head tracking sensitivity roll. Roll is like using your ailerons. Default setting is at 1, which relates to a 1-to-1 movement. Head tracking sensitivity position. Now this is one of the settings I consider important. It addresses the degrees of freedom from up and down, physically moving up or down, physically moving to the left or right, and not to forget the zoom factor, leaning forward or backward physically. The setting should be a minimum of 1. Now for some reason the default setting is at 0. That has resulted in bugs. So make sure to have it set at 1. If you turn it down, the zoom feature wouldn't function. If you move it more than 1, it can affect the amount of camera movements and increases that in relation to your physical movement. An existing bug which you should be aware of. Now the last setting would be head tracking auto center. It can be set to 0 or 1. If set to 1, it slowly and progressively auto centers. My setting is at 0. If I need to reset the position, I simply hit the F12 button. Now as a whole, there are many pluses for a Tobii Eye Tracker. The other pluses are that Tobii can be set up to work just like track IR. Make small movements on your head and the movement exaggerates in the sim. I like it sometimes when things can be a bit more easier. You have the choice to either move your head, your eyes, or even a combination of both, which makes it flexible. The tracker recognizes the sim automatically and doesn't give you the extra step of opening the software to confirm whether it's in sync, helping us shorten one step with the already complicated setup on flight simming. One of the other pluses are that it does operate perfectly fine in any condition, meaning head tracking in the dark or in a case when your room is bright. The system is projecting its own IR lighting that you can't otherwise see. What do we conclude here? Of course, there's more testing to do on several types of aircraft, but for the time being, we tested on a few, and I've been very impressed. We saw the Cessna that comes under the GA category. We saw gliders and commercial. I'd love to try this on a heli or a jet. I would say so far, it is quite impressive and serves very well as an alternate solution that isn't VR or any other tracking device. It sure is a strong contender with its share of pros for the most part and cons depending on the right platform. I'm quite pleased with the comfort, setup, the build quality and hope to use it more for many more adventures at Microsoft Flight Simulator. It definitely is a middle ground between VR and pancake mode, helping get more immersion heads-free. If you'd like to pick one for yourself, feel free to click this link below in the description that serves as an affiliate link and not charging you anything more. As always, it's been a true pleasure. We hope you liked this video and do subscribe for more as we have plenty coming. Until next time, do take care.